Hello, everybody, and welcome to the PC Gamer Show. My name is Tom Marks, Associate Editor here at PC Gamer, and your host. As always, we are back, and we are back with a long-forgotten name on the PC Gamer Show, Mr. Evan Lottie. Evan, how are you?
Oh, man, I'm so good. I'm so good. So glad to be done with E3.
You feel like the weight of the world has just been lifted off your shoulders?
Yeah, for some folks who may not know, we put on this event called the PC Gaming Show. I was working on that for a while. Went well with our friend Day 9. Good stuff. But, like, glad to put that down for a while and until next E3 2018 and get back to some old-fashioned website and podcasting with you.
Yeah, man. Well, we're excited to have you back. Yeah. We're also joined by another guy. Tyler, you haven't been around since, like, April, so Tyler Wilde, welcome back.
Has it been that long? I guess so.
It's been a while. I mean, it's already June. It's summer officially as of yesterday. So there you go. Yeah. Everything's happy and warm. Too warm in this room. Usually, it's summer always in the PC Gamer podcast room. But we're happy to be back. We are going to be talking almost entirely about E3 today. We're going to skip our latest news portion at the beginning of the show because the latest news is all of the news.
Yeah, nothing's open. You know, the GTA modding stuff. That happened last week too.
Actually, that might be worth just touching on really, really fast. So yeah, that's actually a really good point. The one thing that we're going to talk about today that's not E3 related news, basically, is GTA modding, which is, if you guys didn't hear about it, what did they do? They shut down. Take-Two ordered a cease and desist on OpenIV or Open4, which is the modding tool that is kind of the crux of all GTA, I think 5 and 4 mods. Mm-hmm. And their reasoning for this was to stop online cheating, but it kind of just like doesn't really hold water because the mod turns itself off when you go online, and like people are skeptical as to maybe this was just a front for also just kind of limiting mods in general, or like it's hard to tell. Rockstar had a statement that was basically like, we're bummed that this hit the single player part of it, and we're going to look for ways to not do that, but we want to stop online piracy, which is completely their prerogative to do. Like there's everything within their legal rights, but people are very mad. I'm kind of bummed it's happened. It's a really disappointing thing because there's a lot of cool mods that have come out of GTA 5.
Yeah, it sets an unfortunate precedent, right? Because as companies like Bethesda now, with their creation area for modders, are sort of, you know, signaling that they're creating their own kind of Steam workshops and proprietary areas for modders. Like, they're exercising their own control over those services, obviously. And what we don't want to see is sort of this become the trend where massive games like GTA 5, you know, one of the best-selling games of all time, period, are discouraging modding or even outright preventing it now. So hopefully we'll come to some nice compromise in the coming months, but not a good change of events for GTA fans.
Yeah, it's... Go ahead, Tyler.
I don't play GTA Online, but do either of you? Have you? Because, like, my question is, who really gives a damn about cheating in GTA Online? Like, isn't it just a free-for-all of stupidity?
Well, there's definitely instances of hacking and griefing. You know, I've seen some funny videos. The Idle Thumbs guy's one that comes to mind where he had his character griefed in this, like, ridiculous way where, like, money was appearing out of nowhere and vehicles were being spawned and stuff like that, and it's got to be unpleasant for folks who are like playing that game and maybe not familiar with the concept of modding. They don't know what's going on. You know, they don't understand this sort of a anything goes environment. So
I guess I'm being flippant. It's just that GTA to me seems almost like Gary's mod, in that it would just be built for griefing and for stupidity, and almost I almost wonder why Rockstar takes it so seriously as, I guess, a competitive sort of thing, when it almost seems like it would be more fun as a playground where it matters a lot less.
Well, we can't forget that Rockstar has a complicated relationship with modders, let's put it that way. Maybe you remember this event called Hot Coffee, where a modder uncovered sexual content that was not meant to be published. That was uncovered. That was uncovered by a modder,
which they left in the
would
game.
Not be a big deal,
but they didn't.
Today.
They didn't.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point.
Oh, of course. I mean, this is a different era. In the early to mid 2000s. This is probably 2004 or 5. Anyway, I mean, that was a massive headache for them.
Yeah.
That was like years of negative attention and fighting, and, you know, who wants to go through that again? And that's the kind of experience that just sticks with you forever. So I'm not saying that like Rockstar has a bad attitude toward modders. I think clearly like they built GTA 5 to accommodate this, like, and it's more that like Take-Two is sort of, I think, seeing the success of GTA Online over the past year or two, and sort of saying like, how can we corral this and make the experience better in their minds?
Plus, they're probably building Red Dead 2 to be very similar, to have a big online mode. So, you know, in part, this might be in preparation for that. They're starting to take action because they're planning to launch another big online mode, and they don't want people expecting to go into it and be modding it. And yeah, I mean, if it releases for PC, which they haven't announced.
Yeah, it's a big old mess, and it's a situation that I, more than anything, hope doesn't just turn into nothing. Like, I really hope this is not the end of it. It's just like Take-Two issues these cease and desists, and Rockstar's like, we hope we can do something about single player mods, and then it just goes away and no one remembers. Like, I really hope this has some sort of conclusion.
Well, we're covering it aggressively, Tom.
Yeah,
and you know, our man Chris Livingston, who's been on the show many a time, he's really heading this up, and he's actually in touch with the creators of Open IV, whatever we're calling it. So yeah, hopefully we'll have some direct words from them soon.
A couple long-time resubscribes here. Buttface Jones with 4 months. Max Ursa with 12. The big 12. 1 year.
Congrats.
Welcome back.
Let's get a cake.
Kunifu with 16. And JBJ Blaze, the long-time lead, with 18 months. So thank you very much, guys. Before we move on to talking about E3 stuff specifically, I do want to make a couple quick things. Next week's show, we're going to be bringing on Nate Weiss, who is the developer of Songbringer, a very, very cool kind of like Zelda-like game. He's going to be showing that off. It's going to be a good show. The week after that, though, we are going to be off again because we are swapping offices once again.
Yeah.
Some of you might remember that happening. We were doing the show over Skype for like 4 weeks when we swapped offices last time. We're not going to be doing that, but we are going to be taking a week off to just kind of like get the new room set up, and then we'll be back to you in 2 weeks' time.
Yeah.
Beyond that, though, let's get into it, man. Let's get into E3, because I was preparing a list of stuff that, like, games that we could talk about today, and it was insane. Like, just you can glance at this, Evan. It's just like,
it's a lot of bullet points, Tom.
It is a lot of bullet points here. Actually, let me see if I can't bring this up for you guys.
Let's screen share our Google Doc.
I'm going to screen share a Google Doc. It's riveting TV right now. If I can actually get it working. All right, there we go. It's a lot of games, basically, is the answer to this. Thank you. Like,
Evan's taking control.
Yeah, he is. Like, this is a heck of a lot of things, and these are just like things that I thought maybe we could talk about, right? Like, not even all of it.
Yeah.
So what do you guys want to talk about? Is there anything that you want to talk about more than anything else about E3?
I don't know if we want to begin here, but our biggest surprise in our game of show was Hunt Showdown.
Dude, I think we should start there.
Terrific. So let's we definitely want to put this footage in front of people.
Yeah, I'm going to get it up right now.
So a few years ago, I think E3 2013 or 2014, Visual, is it called? Were they called Visual Studios? The folks that made Darksiders, that are now part of Crytek Austin, and then I think that got dissolved as well. Sorry, I'm not up in all my history to do with Crytek, but yeah, they announced a game called Hunt: Horrors of the Gilded Age. Really awkward long title, but basically it was a Left 4 Dead style cooperative 4-player FPS. It looks super promising, and this is not it. This is Hunt Showdown that we're seeing now. But it sort of went dark for a while as Crytek was kind of going through some restructuring, let's say. And now it's kind of re-emerged this E3 just last week as Hunt Showdown. And it's a very differently designed game, and there's a lot of good stuff going on here. So what we're saying here is it's 2 players wandering through this kind of bayou. I think it is set in Louisiana. But the notion of the game is you're these bounty hunters. You're a team of 2, and you're trying to hunt this monster on a large map that spawns in one of many different possible locations. Now, in here with you are 4 other teams of 2 players, in addition to these sort of like monsters and other zombie type enemies, NPC enemies, basically, that are populating the map. So it is a PvPvE game. And all these players are trying to get a hold of the monster enemy, right? They're trying to track him down, find him. You have to look for these. One of the players on the team has like a detective vision mode almost, where they can look for clues that exist in the map. If you find all 3 clues, it will reveal the monster's location. But when you just find one of these clues, you're actually able to look through the monster's eyes for a few moments. And what that does is, through seeing their surroundings, you're saying like, oh, this kind of looks like a barn, or it looks like a field. I know some that like narrows it down for me. I know some possible areas on the map that are that. It could be this. Let's look there, right? Instead of trying to track down all the clues. You want to be the first folks to get the monster, kill it, and then you have to banish it back to hell. This is a horror game, and the banishing process is sort of like you're activating the objective, right? So you have to sort of you don't have to sit around it, but ultimately when the banishing is done, say it takes like 2 minutes or something, you pick up the bounty, which is like sort of an object or something. You redeem your monster coupon or whatever, and then you carry it out of the map like a football to win, basically. Now, as you're doing that in any part of the process, and we're seeing some combat against NPCs here, other players can attack you. They can steal the bounty from you. They can wait for you to kill the monster and then attack you and try and get it, and make you do all the hard work and maybe get injured, maybe lose ammo and stuff like that, so you're like weakened. Okay. That's like the basic setup. Oh, by the way, there's permadeath. So, and we're seeing the detective mode here, which I really like because it's not too explicit. It's just sort of saying like somewhere over here there's activity. But anyway, so there's permadeath. So it's a session-based game, right? It's not like a persistent world or anything. You're coming to these matches. You're saying, okay, there are different types of monsters. We're fighting the spider this time. We're fighting the whatever one in the next game, and you're bringing in weapons and equipment that you've accumulated over multiple matches, right? But if you die in this match, you lose that equipment, you lose that character. There's going to be some kind of like meta progression where like you get like, maybe +1 or +5% reload speed or whatever that carries across those accounts. But for the most part, like you're losing a huge chunk of progress and that character when you die. So
that was something I missed, is that the progression is actually like out of... Or it carries between matches. I thought it was basically just like a Battlegrounds H1Z1 sort of thing.
No. So they didn't really talk about this too much. Again, it was kind of interesting because this was off the E3 show floor. They did not release this footage until after E3, so we were sort of in this position of like, it's our game of E3, guys. Like, you were seeing through the monster's eyes. Trust us, it's actually amazing. Just like wait until this footage gets out, and that's why we're sharing it with you now. But yeah, it's a permadeath game through and through in that way.
That's so weird.
So why is this exciting to us? Well, it's not really a survival game. You can see here it's gorgeous.
Yeah, it is. And for the record, what we're doing right now is we are streaming a YouTube video. So go find this footage. Go to pcgamer.com/hunt-showdown, and you can find this footage in glorious HD and watch it because it's beautiful.
And what we're missing here is the commentary. This is just a couple developers playing a match, and it's actually like a very nice, authentic representation of that. I think like one of the
Anthem. Excuse me, sorry.
Yeah, we'll talk about that.
Yeah.
One of the first things we see is they spot players, and this is like so encouraging to me as a fan of Arma and DayZ and Stalker. They're like, and they say this explicitly, let's ignore those players completely. Like in any other game demo, and especially an E3 demo, they would have like tried to make it really exciting and like, oh, I headshotted that guy from 100 meters or whatever, and I totally got him and stole his stuff. You actually can't steal people's stuff, by the way. That's one way in which it's not a survival game. You do not pick up people's guns and whatever. But yeah, there's a couple points in this video. We're actually seeing one right now where they're like, oh, there's guys over there. Let's not fight them at all. And that's so exciting to me about the style of game they're going for here. It's a stealth game. It's sort of an exploration and hunting game, right? Not a let's find everybody on the map and just like fight them as quickly as possible and try and win that way. A couple other really exciting details. You can, I believe, leave the map at any time. You can just decide like, this is too scary. The situation is bad. I want to save my character, right? You can just get to the extraction point, I guess, and retain that. And in a way, like, I love that there's a non-binary victory condition in that way, right? It's not all or nothing. Yeah, so I'll let you guys chime in here, but I'm super excited about this game. I will go as far to say that, like, for me, in terms of the technical ambition, the size of the world, the fidelity, the lighting is incredible, and the design ambition in terms of the number of genres that they're just like welding together: survival, horror, open world, FPS, co-op, battlegrounds, battle royale. Like, this is the next Crisis for me in that regard, in terms of the work that they're doing and how committed they are to their ideas.
And yeah, it's also potentially the next Crisis in a different way, in that it is a beautiful looking game, and it might actually be a game that you need to build a better PC for.
Oh, in this footage, the frame rate drops at a few key moments. You'll see it. And I'm actually really glad that they're not trying to hide that. There's one right there, that they're not sort of glossing over that. Like, they're more interested in really showing the honest sense of what the game looks and feels like right now in its pre-alpha state than dressing up in sort of like with all respect to Ubisoft, like a really choreographed demo.
This scene too, when they're now actually in the video at the spider, the monster that they're hunting, in this barn trying to kill it. And it's like almost an entirely different game, right? Now it looks sort of like a Resi 7 boss fight.
Exactly. You could just see, like pay attention to this really unnatural movement, how unpredictable it seems to be. Again, we only get a sense of this one monster, and there are going to be multiple monsters in the game. There it is kind of in the corner. And it's gone.
Fast.
Where'd it go?
It's horrifyingly fast.
But they sort of deal with it pretty well. And actually, I hope it doesn't sound like I'm just heaping unnecessary praise in this game. I really like that this isn't sort of a JRPG style or Dark Souls style boss, seemingly, where it's got weak spots, it's got like big telegraphed maneuvers, it's got like a mini boss, or it's just like it's a target that you have to deal with, and it's more about the process of getting there, of scouting, using your eyes and ears, using the map. How can I navigate and communicate? Then like, oh, if you shoot the spider monster in its middle eye, it'll deal 50% more damage. Like, it's definitely not that kind of game. And through that, I think you can see the spirit of Arma. You can see the spirit of Stalker in this game. And yeah, a little bit of like Resident Evil in the art style.
It's really interesting how many different, like you mentioned that they kind of plastered together a couple different genres, but it's really interesting to me how the different phases of the game really do look like different genres, because now they're waiting to banish the spider. Yeah. And they have to wait like 2 minutes, and everyone on the map knows where they are. So it almost becomes this wave defense style game where you're fighting PvE enemies and PvP enemies. And yeah,
so right here we see him lining up an enemy who's trying to there's a revival system, revive a downed ally. So yeah, extraction point is available now. He's banished this spider enemy back to hell. And part of the lore, the way they described it to us, which is pretty cool, the game is all about the unknown. They want it to be about the unknown. They kept kind of harping on this as their like big marketing tagline. But the idea is that like in this world, evil is attracted to like the darkest and most kind of damaged and unkempt parts of the world, like this Louisiana swamp. And here you can see this sort of weird barbed wire grenade. It's like a defensive, you could only see it there for a moment, but he's sort of covering their tracks to prevent people from chasing after them.
Yeah, it's really, and this is where the demo ends, it's really an interesting thing, especially it not being at a conference and only being shown off the floor. And we only did get to see this footage in high quality for ourselves yesterday. It's just been kind of incredible to see how excited you guys are about it, and then also now getting to see it ourselves. And I'm watching that demo, and I was definitely like I understand it.
I guess what we responded to is, well, first of all, like we weren't expecting it, and in so many cases we are like Destiny 2. We know it's coming. Like certain things get leaked in advance, or financial reports and stuff like that. We have a sense of what's coming or not. It was a genuine surprise. That's number one. But more than anything, I think Crytek really demonstrated with this demo that they're committed to their ideas, because this is an incredibly difficult type of game to design. It's artistically ambitious, and like, how do you balance a 5 pairs of 2 against enemies in an open world where you have permadeath, right? It's not like Battlegrounds where if you die, it sucks, but like you can just start up a new round. Like the player will have lost something, you know, along the lines of DayZ, but it's I don't know, much more.
It adds attention for sure.
It's explicitly competitive, whereas DayZ is not necessarily.
Yeah.
You know, it's a survival game. So I think like seeing that demo, there's just so many ways that they could have compromised, right? They could have simply added like a bunch of cosmetic DLC to like make your guy look really cool, and who knows, maybe they will do that, but it didn't seem that way.
Yeah.
Or they could have made the environment scary, but like much better lit. You could get a sense of like how penetrating and like impermeable the darkness is throughout that environment, and how much it adds to when you see a silhouette on the horizon, when you see a muzzle flash, like the visual information that comes across in those moments. So the design and the art, like the mechanics and the art design seem really kind of walking hand in hand, which is refreshing. And yeah, again, the fact that it's permadeath. You know, imagine if in Battlegrounds you built up a loot as you played, and if you died, you lost it forever. That's basically what we're talking about here. Like
you wouldn't go into each round as casually, that's for sure.
Exactly. So I'm just really looking forward to this on a number of levels. We don't have a release date yet, but they did tell us at E3 that they're going to be running some kind of, we don't know if it'll be closed alpha, closed beta, open beta, early access, whatever. It'll be some kind of, you know, pre-release tests, and I think that's going to be invaluable, considering the amount of interesting original stuff going on here.
Yeah, I'm glad.
I'm worried.
Go ahead, Tyler.
I'm worried that as someone who's afraid to leave high security space in Eve ever, that I'm just going to get into a map and see like 3 zombies and be like, okay, let's go. It's time to leave. Because it just, knowing about the permadeath stuff feels, I mean, like I said, I think in our like roundup, I feel anxious just thinking about playing it, just thinking about going into that super dark environment, which the lighting is amazing in that, or I guess the lack of lighting. But the way the flare, you know, creates silhouettes is pretty gorgeous. I think we said in our article about it, it's the best darkness we've ever seen. Because not many games get darkness perfectly right. They just kind of make everything blue and evenly lit. But this is clearly really dark. But yeah, I worry that me as a player, I really love the idea. I don't know if it'll be for me. Like, I like playing Battlegrounds because I know if I die, I can just start over. I would probably be too timid in a game like this. I would need an excellent commander like Evan to talk me through it.
For sure, and yeah, it's gonna be interesting. Like, it seems a very hardcore game the way they presented it. You know, there isn't that kind of. I mean, Battlegrounds is a very social game. You're hopping in a car with your buddies. You're doing a backflip on a motorcycle. You know, you're falling out of the sky and just sort of casually talking about like your day at work and stuff. Like there are these moments built into Battlegrounds, even as it's a game about just killing everyone as fast as possible and staying alive, where you're just hanging out with your pals, and that's a big reason why it's been successful. It doesn't seem like Hunt will be that style of game. You're lurking around like waist deep in the mud and you know, encountering enemies. And there's just, you can't see anything, so we'll see. But yeah, really promising, encouraging stuff. You know, great to see that some of the same folks behind Crysis are really delivering artistically impressive games. Yeah, and I'm glad we spent a longer time on this, because as we said, this was our big best of E3. It earned that title, and I'm just interested to see more about it, because they're being kind of cryptic. They didn't give like a release date or anything beyond like some sort of early something. So we'll bring more as we know more about that. A couple resubs while we were doing that, by the way. Mildos for 4 months. Let me scroll down. A lot of you guys are subbing, which we really appreciate. Havoc Reaper for the first time, and Dodo UK for 8 months. Thank you very much, guys. So what else do you guys want to talk about? Because there's so much.
Tyler, is there anything, you were kind of quiet during the Hunt Showdown section. Is there anything you wanted to call out or anything you're really excited about in that came out of E3?
Yeah, well, I mean, Hunt was clearly a game built out of Evan Lottie's mind, so I didn't want to interrupt his enthusiasm. Well, we're going to get to it eventually, but I guess we could talk about Anthem.
We should.
I feel nervous talking about Destiny 2 as well without Tim Clark, who is our Destiny expert. But Anthem, of course, if you didn't see, is BioWare's new action adventure game that we kind of only knew about in that they had said, yeah, we're making a new sci-fi IP, as is the industry term for new game.
Listen, Tyler, if there's one thing I love and enjoy and like I'm really passionate about across my lifetime, it's intellectual property.
I love it. I
love protecting the rights to it. I love connecting with it. I love experiencing intellectual property. That's what I'm passionate about.
Yeah. I'm big on brands. So
they're good too.
We kind of guessed at what this was beforehand, because like in the investors meetings, they kept saying it's a live service. It's not an RPG. It's an action game. So it felt pretty clear that we were looking at possibly BioWare's take on Warframe or Destiny or something like that. And that seems to be what they showed. You know, we saw a gameplay trailer. You've got a hub city. You get a mission. You get your friends over incredibly scripted and fake comms and tell them to join you, and then you have suits called javelins, which are like your jetpack suits. I made fun of that, I think, because I think like every sci-fi world has to have some piece of technology called the javelin, which is like
it's been
like there must be a javelin in like the BattleTech universe. There must be one in like Titanfall 2's universe.
There's an Artemis in BattleTech. Yeah. So I mean, as we posted yesterday, they've already got a 10-year plan for this game. I mean, this is very much EA's Destiny. But this is what they're going for, right? Like big loot-driven, PvE co-op, raid-based. It's third person though. That's kind of the bigger distinction. Yeah. So they have a greater focus on movement. Now, talking with Tim, who's like our massive Destiny expert, and James has also played a lot of Destiny, like it all comes down to the gunplay, right? Because by losing first person, you're losing a lot of that weapon feel, you know? You're losing cool animations, reload animations, a sense of like recoil and response. Can they replicate that across, you know, what for a lot of people is going to be like a hundreds of hours game in third person, right? Because all you got then is like your character animating, some particle effects, and the jetpack stuff.
And as their solution, or one of their solutions, as we're about to see in the video, which you can see if you go to pcgamer.com/anthem, is they've replaced it with your flippin' Iron Man. Like they have.
I mean, this is cool. All right, like how can you be cynical about this? You're falling through a gorgeous like, you know, overrun post something world with, and yeah, that's choreographed or whatever, but like, I want to fall out of the sky. I always want to fall out of the sky, Tom.
Yeah, and this is why I wrote about this in our highs and lows of E3. Like, I hate with a fiery passion E3 vertical slice trailers, right? Like these pre-scripted demos, because this game, if you take out the hokey combat and the fact that like all these little critters running across their path perfectly timed is like, oh my goodness, that's so convenient.
Like it's Lion King.
Right. Yeah, right, exactly. Like if you take all that out, this looks like an interesting game to me. Like it looks like a cool jetpack third-person shooter in a jungle world, even though it's sci-fi, which is like that's a good sell to me. But this trailer just gave me no sense of like what I'm gonna feel like playing it. You know, like it didn't. Go ahead.
No, we get the scene with this monster that you guys just saw on Twitch, where you know the chat, they're going, oh, I don't know if now's a good time for this guy. We'll deal with him later. And you know, not only was it silly, but Tim brought up, you know, fairly like, are we really going to be conserving ammo that much that we're skipping, you know, interesting looking encounters? But the fact that we don't know is, to your point, Tom, why these trailers really tell us so little. Was that just something they put in the script because they wanted to show that monster but didn't want to spend too much time on it? Or does that tell us about how the game plays? It's not clear, but we do see combat, and it looks like Mass Effect Andromeda combat to a degree.
Yeah, part of me wonders if the jump jetpack in Mass Effect Andromeda and like the dashing and stuff like that in Andromeda was sort of maybe inspired by the movement in this game a bit.
Sure.
Because they are similar. Obviously, in Andromeda, you can't just Iron Man around, but...
Right, and I guess we haven't said this is BioWare. This is a BioWare game.
Tyler mentioned that at the beginning, yeah, and it doesn't immediately look like a BioWare game, though, to me.
Sure.
Which is, I mean, like, comparatively, like, you look at Dragon Age and then you look at Mass Effect, and it's like, yeah, those are very, very similar games. The feeling of BioWare is kind of not... like, this doesn't look like Mass Effect to me in any way.
Certainly. Yeah, I think, you know, the reaction I have to this is it's pretty, the movement's encouraging. I like the art design of the world, but for the same reason I did not play Destiny and not get into Destiny, maybe I'm guilty of, like, not giving it a fair shot, but, like, I don't have a sense of who I am and what the stakes are in this world. To me, it just reads as slightly generic sci-fi, right? There's been some kind of apocalyptic event. I'm exploring a world, and here we're seeing the loot system. But, like, I have no investment at the outset of seeing this in who I am and what's going on, compared to Hunt, where it's like, I don't know, apples and oranges, sure, but like, I'm this bounty hunter in a world overrun with horrors. Like, I get that; it's immediately evident to me. Watching this, I'm just sort of fighting monsters, and I'm a guy in an exosuit. Got it. Like, I've done that. I've done that dozens of times.
Was it you that joked about the finding the legendary item too?
Yeah, the
dialogue right here is like, she finds like this weapon called Jera's Wrath that's like a legendary item, and she's like, "Oh, nice! I found Jera's Wrath," and her friend is like, "Oh, cool." And like no ally would ever come up with that.
In reality, her friend would have been like, "Fuck you."
God damn it! I've been looking for that.
I've been trying to get that for 3 weeks, and you just get it the moment you log in. I hate you.
Yeah, I'm definitely with Evan on. I wanted to see more of like why this world is interesting. I mean, it's partially interesting because it's beautiful, and there's this huge storm that appears to be some kind of dynamic event. And you know, earlier we saw a big walking robot thing fall over. Like, okay, I mean, like some good concept art occurred before this trailer, but what we get as the premise is, okay, there's a wall, and outside the wall there's monsters, which is like as much a sci-fi premise as it is the brief for how to design a cooperative shooter. You know, have a hub place and then have enemies that move around outside. So, you know, even though Destiny's story got mocked pretty ruthlessly, I feel like, and granted it's had years to progress and develop lore, but I kind of feel like when I hear people talk about Destiny, there's all this silly stuff going on in there. And, you know, Bungie is good at making up silly sci-fi lore. And nothing here in Anthem just looked like weird or cool to me. Like, it looked like Alien Ruins, which is like what was the most boring part to me about Mass Effect Andromeda, was exploring weird alien ruins that weren't that weird. They were just moving platforms. It's
also very in fashion right now. I mean, you think about the success of Horizon, I feel like, and even you could even slightly trace it back to The Last of Us, right? Like, over, you know, grass and weeds and wildlife kind of taking back humanity after it's sort of fucked up and ruined the world in some way, right? I don't know. I'm just sort of used to that art style at this point. I want something darker and more swampy.
I'm confused about the art direction they've chosen, I guess, because it doesn't, you know, Evan, you just said when we were looking at the trailer, post something, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't necessarily look post-apocalyptic, but in the other cinematic trailer we got, it had almost an Attack on Titan feel of like, we're hiding behind this wall from the horrors on the other side. And yeah, I'm interested to learn more. I feel like basically this vertical slice made me be like, okay, it's going to be a third-person shooter, and it's going to be online, and all right, like, I love mech suits. I'm into anything with mech suits, but I just don't know enough to make me care yet. Is really what it comes down to. I left everything they gave me for Anthem at E3 just completely like, all right, cool.
Yeah. Yeah, I think last point on this.
Yeah.
Who's going to be bold enough to make a structural change to the style of game, right? Because ultimately, okay, we haven't seen everything with Anthem. For all I know, it's way more ambitious than they showed in that video. Who's going to make this style of game more than go to this waypoint and shoot enemies? Who's going to make it more than go to this waypoint and like defend it while enemies come in like an organized fashion, right? Like, and these, I mean, they dress them up as raids or whatever. That's sort of how they frame them, but ultimately it's sort of a slightly more complicated take on Mass Effect multiplayer, for example, which is just show up and shoot the guys that are kind of staring at you. Who's going to come up with some kind of inventive new mode of play and structure for this? Like, that's what I'm interested in, not art style, not abilities, not loot. I want to play a different style of game, because that style of game has been accessible to me for like a decade.
Yeah. Chris86 has subscribed for 14 months in a row. Thank you very much, as always. I want to go next because I want to pull up one that I'm a wee bit excited for, which is Monster Hunter World. We don't have to spend as much time on this, but it's something I want to talk about. Monster Hunter World is officially confirmed for PC, which is exciting because Monster Hunter has never been on PC, and that's like, it's just cool that we're getting it. It's such a sign of the times that, like, more and more Japanese games and more Japanese developers are just okay with launching on PC. And the Dauntless is coming out. Dauntless was basically a direct response to there's not a Monster Hunter game on PC. And to their credit, the head of the studio, Phoenix Labs, that makes Dauntless, came out and was like, we're excited that Monster Hunter is going to be on PC because, like, it's much... He sees it as more of like a single-player thing, while Dauntless is like an online thing. But I've never really played a Monster Hunter game in depth, and this game looks like a pretty cool giant monster fighter, and I'm excited that we get a chance to play that. Like, I don't know. I don't have too much more to say than yay. Like, it's just a cool thing that it's finally happening. And it might be just more of a sign of Capcom is really, Capcom is becoming more and more cool with ports. Mm-hmm. Bandai Namco 2 is doing a lot more PC stuff. NIS America is doing a lot more PC stuff. Sega, like, all these companies these Japanese companies are slowly but surely getting more and more comfortable just bringing their games on launch, or at least close to launch, to PC.
These animations are just wild, though. I remember watching this in the Sony press conference and just sort of like, what's going on here? But yeah, certainly, like, it's going to be fun to sort of see the distinction between Dauntless and this game, right? Sort of an East meets West matchup of the monster hunting style games. That's going to be really fun to watch. But yeah, I'd love to get a Monster Hunter fan in here to get a sense of what they're most interested in of this game, like what stuck out to them.
I think Steven was in the chat as well. Steven Mesner is he loves Monster Hunter, so hopefully he can share some of those insights, and we can come back. If anybody else is a Monster Hunter fan too, we don't judge you, we love you, and you should tell us what you think or what you're excited about in the chat. Tag us with @PCGamer, and we'll read that out as we continue down our E3 journey, because there's so much, dude. Do we want to talk about Wolfenstein? Wolfenstein was another one of the more exciting ones, I think, or one of the more exciting reveals, even though we knew it was coming pretty much entirely.
It was super leaked, just like a lot of other stuff this year. Yeah, so Wolfenstein, the new Colossus, Wolfenstein II, excuse me. It is a sequel. Yeah, so really, really excellent trailer. One of the best trailers of E3. It started off with a lot of this like crazy live action stuff that they filmed. That was really funny, I thought. Sort of reminded me of Republican Space Marines. Is that what it's called in GTA?
What now?
Like the TV shorts in GTA. Is that what they're called? GTA 5? I don't know. It's been so long. Anyway, so yeah, I played the first about 15 minutes of this game at E3, and I think my biggest desire before I played it was, okay, I want Wolfenstein to continue to be weird. That's like my biggest priority, because if they think about good, if you're trying to ask yourself the question, like, what's the best single player FPS over the past 5 or 6 years, if you consider that like an era or a half a generation or something. You say, oh, well, Dishonored 2 was really good once they sorted out the technical issues. But is that like a shooter per se? Not really. And you sort of end up on either Doom or Wolfenstein, whether you like story and sort of a campaign style presentation, or just like raw gameplay more, right? And that's
breaking and tearing.
That's probably Doom. If you like breaking and tearing, exactly, ripping and tearing.
Ripping. Excuse me. Oh God, I can't believe I got that wrong.
And based on what I played, I can really say that they're delivering the weirdness. Thank goodness. You begin the game in a wheelchair, which I thought was incredibly bold. So, BJ sort of picks up where the last game left off. I'm not going to give too much away here, but like, you're in the submarine, and there's resistance vessel, and it gets sort of like invaded or attacked by Nazis, and BJ is in really rough shape. He's been in a coma for 5 months. He just loves being in comas, sort of taking his long naps away from battle, and he like forces himself in this wheelchair. And it's not just in a cutscene. You have to play the game in the wheelchair for the first like 15 minutes at least. I actually hope it goes longer than that, because I found it so interesting. So you're thinking like, is this annoying? Is it going to be weird to like move around on this? And it's actually like one of the most smooth movement schemes I've seen. So you sort of move in small bursts, and you're holding this like machine pistol as you're moving through the submarine, kind of gunning down Nazis that are patrolling and have taken over. But it's inherently weird. Like there are stealth kills you can perform in the wheelchair. You like grab one of the guards' heads and like bash it into the armrest. You can see right here, the cutaway before it happened, but like there's like these microwave emitters where you just like zap Nazis to death like a giant Tesla coil or something. So I was really encouraged by that. A lot of the dialogue was really fun and similar. It just seems like it's more of the same, but taken to a natural extreme. In the trailer, I think late at the end of this trailer, you see that like there's a character who's like hallucinating, is on drugs. There's some interesting little taste of 1960s America, as we see here. This Nazi officer walking in to get a milkshake. So so far so good. I think certainly the Tarantino inspiration is very well intact here. We can't hear the audio here, but at the end of the sequence, the Nazi officer, like after being all chummy, is like, so show me your papers. And it's exactly the kind of like Tarantino tension where based around food and a table. It's like in like most of his films, right? Where the audience knows something that the characters may or may not. Like it's unclear if the identity's been blown and stuff like that. So yeah, just really good to get a sense of that, like confirming our hope that this game would really pick up where the last one left off, which I think is one of the best single player shooters of the past 5 or 6 years.
I really like the way they updated the era in this one. So putting him in a coma is, such a, what's the word? Like such a overused tool.
Device.
It's like a device. That's the word I was
like amnesia.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. But it's also really interesting because the first game was, or the Wolfenstein New Order was just like, it was a little past World War II, right? And then this is just a little past that.
I mean, you're like in a death and labor camp even.
Right.
That's one of the levels. Yeah.
And now it feels like 60s, right around the 60s. It must be 60s, right? Era,
yes.
World War II still, or like that kind of vibe. And it's just a very interesting, weird, cool thing. This is a very like maybe lame reference for me to make, but it felt a lot like, or feels a lot like when Avatar went to Legend of Korra, and like it went from like ancient China to roaring 20s China, and it was like this really neat just kind of transformation of something that I think a lot of people are really familiar with at its core.
Yeah. Yeah, one of the big question marks still is the weapon design. There was only one gun, just like simple machine pistol shown in what we played at E3. There's a couple more shown in the trailer here, but we don't really have a sense of how weird are they going with the weapons, right? That's one of the key things we want to see. We do know, you can see right here, that you can wield asymmetric weapons. So you can have a rifle in one hand and a rocket launcher in the other or something. So you can kind of have different setups there based on your taste.
Yeah, it's interesting. It was one of the more exciting games to me to come out of E3, especially for what was otherwise a kind of low-key Bethesda conference.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I don't want to hate or anything, but like it was like 20 minutes of trailers for games that were already out, and then 20 minutes of a couple new things, and then Wolfenstein was the only really big new thing that they showed.
And without a Fallout, a Skyrim, or now a Doom, which we loved, of course, it's going to be a little bit underwhelming, but Wolf looks good.
Tyler, I'm sorry, I've made you be very quiet, and I feel like we should get some more of your voice in here. Is there any other game you want to call out?
Me? I don't have the list in front of me. You have it.
I do. So let me list just some things that I'd be interested in talking about. There was Metro Exodus came out. The XCOM 2 expansion was announced. Dragon Ball FighterZ was like this weird out of nowhere thing. Yeah, it does look amazing. Good. There we go. You've chosen. Let's talk about that for a little bit, because it's coming to PC, and it was, at least in my eyes, like a very out of nowhere sort of announcement, and it looks just beautiful. It is one of the most beautiful fighting games I've seen in a long time.
I don't have like a crazy amount to say about it because I really don't know much about it outside the trailer. I just really liked the animation. I liked how smooth it looked. I loved the way when a new character comes in, the way they like lock arms before they sort of clash. It just looked really fun, and it seemed to meet the spirit of a show that I watched when I was, 14. And I think one of the first games I ever reviewed professionally was, pretty sure it was a PS2 game called Super Dragon Ball Z. I might have that wrong, but it was a fighting game. So it brings back some memories. I don't have a crazy amount to say about it other than it. Back when I was like a kid playing video games, the idea of a game that looked just like a cartoon was like, that was kind of part of the dream.
Yeah.
It's cool that we're there. Now you're seeing it now.
It really does just look exactly like the show. They've done this animation style where it's intentionally very low frame, and it intentionally looks 2D for the most part.
But it's 3D.
But all the character models are 3D, and so what that lets them do is the gameplay looks like a cartoon. It looks like a hand-drawn cartoon, but then they can do these things what you're seeing now where like when a fire effect happens, it has realistic 3D lighting on every effect, no matter what the angle is, no matter where the lighting effect is coming from, it's all properly lit because it's actually a 3D model, not a 2D drawing. And it just, God, it looks so pretty. And I don't even like fighting games. Like I've said that on the show before. I really don't like fighting games, but this game is just so cool looking. Mm-hmm. It's lovely, and it's got a Marvel vs. Capcom style where you bring 3 fighters in and you can make your team and swap between them in the middle of combat. Yeah, it's total fan service, and I'm totally into it. I'm all about Dragon Ball though, so
So what else can we talk about? There was Brothers was interesting. If you wanted to talk about that,
Brothers.
The guy who made
A Way Out.
Brothers. A Way Out.
Yeah, A Way Out was actually one I really wanted to talk about at some point today, because it was sort of surprising in how like interesting it was. It was one of those out of nowhere games that just like looked really cool.
It's the premise and the setting. I mean, that's it, right? I mean, we've complained for a long time that there's not enough police procedural games. Well, how about prison games? Let alone like cooperative, permanently split screen. Right?
It's permanently split screen whether you're playing online co-op or local.
Prison escape games with like a big-ish budget and but an independent sensibility. So sign me up for that. Sounds great.
Yeah, I like the boldness of putting a lot of limitations on how you can play a game, which really limits the audience and in a way like makes the player do more work to enjoy it, right? Because you got to find a friend who wants to play the whole thing with you, and the fact that it's split screen even online limits your point of view, but gives you kind of different information because you can see what's going on with the friend playing it. So, I think that's a really bold decision that may or may not turn out well in the end as far as limiting its audience, but I appreciate I appreciate that the creator believes there's enough to this idea that it's worth doing, that it's worth restricting it. Putting more limitations on games sometimes can help actually make something interesting versus trying to please every single potential player.
Yeah, we're seeing some combat sequences here, but best case scenario, I think we end up with almost a journey style game, right? With surprising aspects of interaction between players that hopefully has something interesting to say about prison and society and crime and all those sorts of things. But I'm not sure. It may be more of an action movie. We're seeing some like very action movie shots here as he leaps across a cliff to meet his companion, his friend. But we'll see.
I really couldn't get over this game just because of that decision to make it split screen only. It seems it's so weird, and it could backfire, but it also could be so successful. Like, it could be something that we just don't get anywhere else, because if you saw in that trailer, and you can see that trailer, as you might guess, at pcgamer.com/a-a or way-out. But yeah, they do some things with the split screen that you can't do if you're just doing normal split screen, and you can't do if you don't have any split screen. So, like, if one character is just having, like, a conversation while the other person is doing something in the background of that conversation, the conversation screen will get, like, smaller, and the person who's actually doing the action, their screen will get bigger. Or in that one scene in the trailer where they're driving a truck, one player's driving a truck while the other player's in the flatbed of the truck shooting at people behind them, it switched from vertical split screen to horizontal split screen, because suddenly that's more important, right? You need that view instead. And then in certain scenes where they're right next to each other, like the one where they're like back to back climbing up a wall, it's not split screen at all. So it's not just like this game is just, it's split screen and that's it, and it's exactly what you think. Like, they're treating it as a really interesting camera device, essentially.
Yeah.
And I can't wait to see kind of how they do that. The thing that concerns me more than the split screen itself is that it will only be co-op. I'm mostly concerned about how long the game will be, because I got through Divinity Original Sin 80 hours with a co-op partner, but like it's still it wasn't easy, like we had to set time aside to actually do that. If the game is any longer than 10 hours, I'm going to have trouble believing I will be able to finish it, basically. If it's a 10-hour game, I think I could do it with a friend. But I don't know if it feels like one of those games that we'll get 8 hours in and then it'll just fall apart and we'll never finish it if it's any longer than that. So in this case, I think brevity might help it.
Well, if it is following the trend of Brothers and Journey, I think we can expect that.
Yeah. Diablo 2014-16-12, wow, what a name, has subscribed. Thank you very much. And please don't resubscribe, because I don't want to read that again. No, I'm kidding. That was a total joke. I'm sorry. I love you. Oh, man, we actually got a lot of subscribers that I missed. Boatnik for 9 months. Something with Chinese characters that I cannot read, but thank you for also subscribing. We appreciate it, even if we cannot read it. And then there was one more. Goodness gracious, so much love today. Hasmuffins for 9 months.
I feel like we should let some of these folks decide what we talk about next, because surely they were aware of what was at E3. I was the only person on the show who was at E3, so I may or may not have seen it, but we can at least react to it. I played Mount & Blade 2. We can talk about that.
I think that was the most spammed for thing during our show, the PC Gaming show, was Mount & Blade 2. Oh, and Riker XXX also subscribed. Thank you. Yeah,
Mount & Blade 2 has a really passionate and loud community. It's pretty wonderful.
Yeah. Oh, a couple of people are already saying Metro, so that seems to be.
Yeah, that was exciting, because it was another surprise. Although I don't think we're surprised that 4A is making another Metro, but it was cool to see it there. And it looks gorgeous as expected.
Tell me a bit about it, because I've actually been relatively out of the loop. The only thing I heard was everyone assumed it would be open world, and it was not.
Yeah, it's Metro Exodus, right?
Yeah, Metro Exodus.
So it apparently, I guess, takes place more above ground than previously, where you've kind of been in these, subway communities, and you'd go above ground here and there. This seems to be an above ground adventure, and it is not entirely open world, though I think in another interview we heard that there are going to be like a mix of like totally linear levels and kind of exploration areas, but it's not Stalker. Essentially, it's not a, just right. It's still a Metro style game.
Yeah.
Other than that, the trailer was beautiful. It had. It went along in a very scripted way that didn't look like someone actually improvising.
God. So choreographed.
Yeah,
so choreographed. I mean,
it had the same scene as Anthem did, where a monster's about to attack, and then it kind of scrambles at a ledge and almost falls off, and then they avoid the battle and escape. It had like the exact same thing that happened in the Anthem trailer, which was funny to me.
Yeah, I mean, I hope this isn't too inside baseball, but like, again, when your game is all about sort of the grittiness and authenticity of surviving, and individual bullets are currency and they matter in that way, and you have these systems about oxygen and your gas mask and kind of the degradation of that stuff over time, like just show that in its authentic, like unidealized, unchoreographed way. Like let that speak for itself, because that's what the game is about, right? It's about this brutal world and sort of walking us through the mechanics one by one. You can see the lighter here. It's like, oh, okay. And, he's gonna have that distinctive like rub of the gas mask later on. Like it's all just very bullet pointy in a way that, I don't know. I mean, I've been doing this for a decade now, but like anything that smacks of that just sends up a red flag to me that you're not confident in really showing me the true experience of what the game will be. And you have to dress it up in this way. But hey, it looks nice. I mean, it looks like a more polished Metro, which honestly that series could use a little bit of sheen on it. So
yeah, the difference between this and the Anthem trailer for me is that we've played Metro games, so we can overlay sort of what we know about Metro onto this trailer, and we kind of know, okay, yeah, it's not going to go perfectly smoothly like this, with every action blending in with the next one as a player makes perfect decisions at every point to show off every feature. It's not going to look like that, but at least we have the experience with the series. Whereas Anthem, I came away going, I don't know what this game, I mean, I know it's a shooter. But yeah, it's of course gorgeous. As foray is, amazing when it comes to environment design and so on and so forth.
Yeah, and on that level of polish, it's easy to forget, or at least for me, it's easy to forget how kind of old, and I don't mean this as a insult, but how old the original Metro game looks because of the Redux that they released and the Last Light Redux, since they both games got these HD remakes, in the recent past. It's easy to forget that they didn't look that good initially, and this game is really like what a modern Metro game should look like, not like a redux of a Metro game.
Yeah. I mean, this is gorgeous, right? I just want to. I want to see it unpracticed. I want to really see someone wander through this world and see what they encounter.
Are there any ugly games? Were there any ugly games at E3?
Ugly games?
I feel like there's got to be something that didn't just make us go, yeah, this was beautiful. Because I've said that at least 3 or 4 times already this podcast.
It's a cool looking crossbow. It reminds me of Half-Life's. I mean, just the look.
Yeah, I talked to our viewer, and I don't know what to say. Jules, we were talking about this trailer. And like how if they had like leaked a screen of this, the Half-Life 3 rumors would have been off the charts, because the Metro series in his mind and my mind as well has really kind of replaced it as this kind of game,
I haven't thought about them in that comparative context before. Oh yeah, this is the moment you're talking about with the monster falling off an edge.
I think my least favorite part is when he catches the train here at the end. Like, come on, guys. Like, is it really that kind of game? Is it really that kind of game where yeah, this like scripted, and you just grab a train at the like. That's how the level ends. Maybe it is. I don't know.
Maybe it will be just like the most scripted on rails game we've ever played, and they were just like, when we buy it, and we're like, what is this?
Literally on rails.
Yeah.
They're like, we showed you. No, this is clearly
exactly. They're like,
slice.
wait, we showed you exactly what the game was at E3.
This is one of the cases.
You guys just didn't believe us.
Like with Anthem, where this probably won't play out like this in the game. You know, this seems like a build created to make a cinematic trailer that shows off every element of the gameplay. So, yeah, I don't know. We might not even see that scene. We'll probably see the train thing, I guess, because it seems like some kind of prologue setup thing.
Right.
Cool. What do people else want to hear about?
Brendan77 just resubscribed, but yeah, let's see what else other people. There were a couple calls for Shadow of War, The Last Night, which was a beautiful looking indie game, and a couple Bannerlord, because God, everyone loves Bannerlord. There were people in our chat for the twitch.tv/PCGamer chat before, during, but after the Bannerlord segment and after the show, being like, where's the Bannerlord footage? Just constant. It was non-stop. There were more Bannerlord things spammed than like hateful comments spammed, which is an impressive milestone to break.
It was basically a meme, but
yeah,
we'll take it.
So yeah, did you want to talk about Bannerlord, or do we want to talk about some of these others that people are calling out?
We need to say something about XCOM 2. Holy smokes!
Yeah, we should.
XCOM 2 War of the Chosen. So, yeah, this got announced at the PC Gaming Show last Monday, and it is the first expansion for XCOM 2. And from what they've said, kind of the clip notes of it are XCOM 2 is becoming a little bit more like Darkest Dungeon, a little bit more like Fire Emblem, and a little bit more like Middle-earth Shadow of War.
Fire Emblem, you say?
Sounds good, right? So, pulling in some of the recent great games that I think most of us all love, into one of our favorite strategy games. In fact, our favorite strategy game of last year. So I think the headline feature of this expansion, they're really emphasizing how big it is. I think that slightly remains to be seen, but it seems pretty significant. It's not just a pile of guns, for sure, but The Chosen. So in the title, it's called The War of the Chosen, and The Chosen are these three kind of general, meaning like commander enemies that appear throughout the campaign, and you'll engage with them at multiple points. You're trying to hunt them. There's all these resistance factions, three resistance factions, each one of which is like trying to destroy one of these chosen enemies. So there's the assassin, there's a psychic one, I think it's called the warlock, and the hunter, I think that's right. So they're voiced enemies, and sort of along the lines of Middle-earth Shadow of War, they will like comment on previous events, like say you defeat them, that might be a remark that they say throughout the campaign. We're about to see the assassin here at the start of it. And yeah, I think this is a really bold, interesting direction to take XCOM. It seems more story driven from the look of the trailer. In that these resistance factions, which we'll see in a few moments, they have their own kind of unique history. You're trying to recruit them because they're like really elite fighting forces, and the resistance factions each contribute a like super powered super soldier to your faction. There's one right there that like can shoot multiple times in a turn, or can shoot while cloaked, for example. So yeah, I'm really excited about the direction this expansion seems to be going. Yeah. What was your reaction?
Well, there was a quote from another interview that said there's like so much in this expansion they almost just made it XCOM 3, right? Like it smacks of that. There are a lot of different factors that they didn't even detail in this trailer, like the whole relationship system, where now your soldiers, as they fight together and next to each other, will become bonded and will get bonuses if they fight next to each other more, and they'll become friends, which is something straight out of Fire Emblem, shamelessly, but that's okay because it fits seamlessly into XCOM, and it's going to make losing soldiers even more horrible.
Right. I mean, you hope that at least like that bonded soldier will say something when their friend dies, so they'll react in some way. Maybe they'll have a debuff or something. And we know also that they're going to be introducing Darkest Dungeon style quirks that are like negative effects to your soldiers. So I don't know if it's a result of like a bad experience or just sort of when the soldier is born, so to speak. But certain soldiers will have like a phobia for different types of aliens, for example, or they might like reload too often. Like they'll get nervous and stuff like that. So I love the idea of making the game more nuanced in that way. I think one of the negative experiences I had in XCOM 2 and probably a lot of other people was, mid-game, you kind of developed your crew, you've got your 6 guys, you've maybe got 1 guy or 2 in reserve, and you just run those soldiers through the whole campaign for the most part. And if they get injured, whatever, you can just swap in some extras. So, yeah, and actually one of the best and one of the most encouraging changes was like one of the most mundane. They're introducing like a fatigue system in that way where basically your soldiers get tired now to avoid that. So it's going to encourage you to play with a wider roster, which I think is great. But yeah, just the story content from what we've seen is really, really encouraging. I'm glad that it's not sort of this parallel campaign like we did get in last XCOM's expansion.
Yeah, it has some similarities to the last DLC too with the hunters, right? Like they seem to like introducing, Firaxis seems to like introducing this idea of the enemies having more agency, right? And putting you more on the back foot against them rather than just there being a map and you just explore the map and do the things, right? There's always been a part of that in XCOM, especially with the whole black site stuff in XCOM 2, but they're really... It's like they're dialing up like difficulty and pressure, right? Like they're slowly, as the expansions go on, just like making the AI more and more mad at you and more aggressive and more grudge holding, which is a cool direction to take that. I thought it was cool. It's going to get me back into XCOM 2, that's for sure. Like it's going to get me pulled back into that game.
Mm-hmm.
Evan, I think the people might want to hear you talk about your hands-on with Mountain Blade.
Yeah.
We kind of briefly mentioned it, but I saw a few comments before we moved on to XCOM, and I am personally curious about it.
No, sure. Definitely. We were sort of mean. I was like, man, everybody wanted Mountain Blade.
Oh, sorry.
Let's talk about XCOM.
No, glad to. So yeah, the footage that we're going to look at here, which shows a bunch of cavalry combat, this is representative of exactly what I played. It's basically direct capture of that, first of all. So yeah, encouraging stuff. You should definitely read Steven's article on the website for kind of a more detailed breakdown that I'm about to give. But
what are the key kind of differences between this one and the first game? Like, is it larger scale? I know Steven mentioned that it's just to now make a meme out of it, a beautiful game, right? Like it's a gorgeous looking thing.
Yeah, I mean, certainly it's just sort of a visual upgrade of what you've played, and that means a lot, because the last game was kind of like DirectX 7 and 8, pretty much,
right?
Graphics. So, yeah, I guess honestly, like the stuff that I'm most excited about, and the stuff that will hopefully represent the biggest difference, is honestly the stuff that we'll see in like visiting villages and upgrading your weapons and customizing your weapons and quest design and stuff like that. And that wasn't shown at all at E3, unfortunately. We're just sort of seeing these standalone pieces of combat. But yeah, I mean, they've made some really nice smoothening of the combat, and especially in the AI. I think one of the big things I noticed was, for the first time, I felt like, oh, the enemy is sending like horse archers at me from the outset to try and harass and sort of like hit and run against my forces and distract me from like my goal, which is running in and smashing their cavalry with my spear, right? So that was immediately encouraging. The AI seemed a little better. I had some real trouble, some like encouraging trouble on one of the harder difficulty maps they put us on. Like the archers were super accurate and just like making my dude into a pincushion. I know they made some good changes to the way shields work. So basically, shields still block damage incidentally, but you can like sort of skill shot your shield, if I can put it that way. So like in order to mitigate shield degradation. So if you're in like this, back and forth kind of battle of attrition with a guy who's got a shield, you got a shield, and you're just bashing each other. Eventually, like the difference between that fight will be which one of you blocked better to reduce the damage on your shield, because eventually someone's going to break someone's shield and break through and get that first attack in, right? So I think that's great. You can see the dust effects there. That's something that really stuck out to me. The sun effects just adds a ton. I like the feeling of glare and sense of difficulty that adds in some moments. So, yeah, I think, it sort of struck me as this is a smoother take on Mount & Blade. I still have a ton of unanswered questions about this game to do with the campaign structure, to do with how are they improving their storytelling. That's a huge question for me, right? Because, the last game, I'm not going to say it got away with, but because it was such a fun, open sandbox experience that made you just sort of a guy on the ground, right? You're not like a hero from the outset. You're not like this super powered medieval, guy. You're just like a normal person who's like making their way with their mercenary party, trying to earn fame and fortune, and that's the appeal of the game, right? So I'm really interested to see how they're going to represent that, almost along the lines of a tabletop campaign, right? Because that's what distinguishes Mount & Blade from Witcher, from any other kind of big open worldish RPG.
I love the archery in this video we're watching too. It looks really hard.
Yeah. So one of the things here, actually, I can't even remember if this was the case in Warband, is you can really only fire over the left. Like once you turn past a certain point, you can see there he switches to his sword. You lose the ability to like pull your arrow back. So you really have to you actually have to orbit people in this counterclockwise pattern in order to get in order to sort of maximize the amount of time you have with the bow and arrow. So it's definitely not arcadey in that way. It's closer to sim in a way that I really like. Yeah, it's the same sort of, if you like this game and you like how satisfying stuff like the archery system was, and kind of nuanced the feeling of running someone down with a spear and timing it correctly, and avoiding running into your allies with your horse, like that's all perfectly intact, and it's certainly more elegant. Let me put it that way.
No, it's a cool looking game, man, and it's one I'm excited also to try, just because I didn't play the first one at all, and I'm excited because this is it's one of those games where everyone always tells me to go play Mount & Blade, and I believe them. Like, I know it's probably a good thing to play, but it's kind of gotten to that point where it looks a little bit rough around the edges, It's very rough around the edges, Tom. And so it's harder to motivate myself to go back and try it, whereas this is like a fresh start, basically.
I mean, no game is going to give you that feeling. I can't think of another one, certainly, of loosing an arrow into a ball of dudes and just seeing who it takes down, right? That's such a unique kind of it's like RNG almost, this notion of scale, right? Scale, and you're one body on the battlefield filled with dozens or hundreds of people, and the game isn't sort of giving you any favors. You're not empowered with special abilities. You don't have extra hit points or anything like that. You're just one of these guys, and actually, for the first time, you're able to actually take orders from a commander if you choose. You can sort of take that role within certain combat scenarios, as I understand, where you're not commanding, you're being commanded, and you're being given orders on the fly. So that's a nice change for folks like me who don't want to mash the function keys in order to command a bunch of different groups of dudes.
That's funny that you could make yourself less important within the game. You know what I mean?
Well, it's sort of the challenge of staying in formation and carrying out your specific orders rather than doing strategy and fighting.
All right, let's see what some other people... If you guys have any questions about E3, we're going to just kind of mesh the Twitch chat Q&A into what do you want us to talk about with E3. This is literally just an E3 show because there is so much. We haven't even touched half of this list, right? I want to bring this up right now, actually. I'm hijacking it. Ask your questions. Tag us with @PCGamer. Please do that. But I want to talk about Beyond Good and Evil 2 right now, man, because that got announced, or it got revealed. I don't even know how many times it's been revealed anymore. But I'm flipping out about Beyond Good and Evil 2, guys, and I'm excited.
Yeah, Ubisoft made a Pixar movie,
That's not a bad way
without being cynical about it. Holy smokes, that animation is just unbelievably detailed and expensive. I mean, you could definitely tell. I mean, our understanding was that this game was sort of the pet project of the Ubisoft CEO, and I think that definitely comes through in the level of polish they gave to this trailer, which out of E3, it was also interesting to hear them say that, oh yeah, like development is beginning, basically.
Right.
Now.
Like, what the heck, man?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is like a
we have not seen gameplay still, to be clear.
sort of a target video, because later in an interview they were saying, like, you know, the goal is to like to have you be able to do what you saw in the video in concept. It's not going to look like a Pixar movie, but the idea that you can, you know, big open world, you can move through, jump in a spaceship, get in your bigger spaceship, go to a new planet, like that is supposed to be the experience. But again, like the number of times this game has already changed throughout various announcements, you know, who knows what we'll actually get. But it was cool to see that it's back on.
Yeah, it makes me very nervous to hear that they're at day one of development, as they put it. I mean, even when I'm excited, because the game director described it as GTA in space, basically, which is like, that's a good pitch, man. But yeah,
best of luck.
I know, right? Like, it's so, there are so many parts of this game that are amazing looking and so many parts that are so concerning. Like, they mentioned really casually, there's online play with a persistent online universe where you play with your friends, and I was like, I don't want that. Wait, what? Like, I just want another single player Beyond Good and Evil game. Like, don't give me this stuff. But we don't even know what it's going to look like. And it's at day one development, so like, who knows if they're even going to be able to do this, or maybe this is the last we'll see of this game for 5 years until they release a new E3 trailer where they talk about how the game is finally coming.
Right.
Like, that could happen.
So we get to see the Fifth Element shot right here.
Yeah, it is very Fifth Element.
Here it is. And later on, there's definitely some Guardians of the Galaxy. So it's wearing its influences on its sleeve. I mean, love the character design, really imaginative, despite those influences. You know, very fun to see something that isn't like a bald, you know, crew cut shaven white dude running around in this kind of universe. I think it's very Ubisoft for them to take that approach.
Yeah, the monkey is a good character. It actually got to the point where in this trailer, though, they were swearing so much, and I don't have anything, like, this isn't like a personal hang-up. I don't have anything against swearing in games, but they were saying, like, fuck so much in this game, or in this trailer, that at one point I was sitting in the office watching it, and I was like, this is Beyond Good and Evil. There's a pig person. This is Beyond Good and Evil. And then they said fuck so many times that I was like, I don't think this is. Because the first game had such they had such a jovial tone in the first game, and it's a lot more adult in this one.
I guess it's a prequel technically too, which like who cares where it sits within the universe at this point. But
it's before the world that you're on as Jade in the first one has been taken over and put under crazy rule, and presumably you're going to kind of find out what led down that path.
So congrats to our friends over in France for making a really exciting cinematic. Hopefully they can make a game that meets this standard and kind of follows through on some of these ideas. And I love the idea. It's basically a grappling hook, like his hand, that seems to be like a big urban movement system where you can probably climb rooftops and stuff with that. But otherwise, we have no idea what's going on here other than like the online mode that you mentioned.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. They said that we want it to be a big, open, persistent universe, solar system where you can jump between like 9 different planets in real time with no load screens. So, but honest to God, I've heard that pitched many times.
Do you have to colonize those planets, Tom?
No.
Do you have to, complete alien Sudoku puzzles to uncover their secrets and like reset their weather systems?
I mean, it's probably No Man's Sky. This is No Man's Sky is what I'm saying. No, they're not procedural. They're all supposed to be hand-generated. But, like, again, to say, like, all the worlds are handmade is like, sure. Oh, excuse me. Haha. And, like, I don't know. We've heard these promises so many times that I'm just so... I don't know. I'm so nervous that this is not going to happen again, or it's going to be so not good, but... They made a damn good cinematic, you're right. All right, well, let's see some questions or some what the chat is asking for, basically. It's people calling out the Devolver Digital conference. Did you end up watching that?
I saw glimpses of it. I know they're doing an AMA on Reddit today about how they made it. I mean, it's very Devolver. It's they take the piss out of E3 in its entirety, and it's incredibly cynical and sardonic. Good for them, but
it's very early 2000s or mid 2000s Adult Swim, like that.
Yeah.
That was very clear, and I saw people being really self-serious about it, and I was like, whatever. It was fun, and if you've been watching E3 every year for a long time, which a lot of you watching this probably have been watching the live streams, I don't know. I thought it was fun just to do something goofy, but it was very cynical, obviously.
I hated it for the first maybe 2 minutes of it, and then when I realized that they were like not trying to do a real conference and that was all like an Andy Kaufman-esque front for this Adult Swim cartoon, basically, I started to love it. I thought it was hysterical once I got it. And before I got it, I was with everyone else. Like, we were in the Discord channel, the club Discord, just being like, this is the dumbest thing. Like, this is really not good, and I want to stop watching it. And then about 10 minutes into it, everyone in the Discord channel was now like, this is brilliant, and it's incredible, and I can't believe I badmouthed it 10 minutes ago. Like, it was such a switch in my mind.
Well, yeah, I mean, Devolver's goal here. I mean, Devolver is, obviously they're like the, I don't know, sub pop or like, indie music record label of gaming, and they've published some awesome stuff that we really enjoyed over the past few years. Yeah, that's part of what they have to do, right? Like, an event like E3 is built for these long-standing institutions, Ubisoft, EA, Nintendo, Sony, Microsoft. They have to sort of prod at them and sort of make a statement and get people talking, which apparently worked.
They want to position themselves, right, as the antagonist to Activision, to
the alternative,
Bethesda, to Ubisoft. We're not them. In fact, just like you, we think that they're totally full of it. So there's a bit of like where I'm cynical, like this is marketing also. Let us not forget that they are just marketing themselves as the antithesis of
cool
these
kid.
other publishers.
Yes.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
But still, it was pretty funny, so I enjoyed it.
I mean, they're marketing themselves as the cool kid, but man, they're so cool.
I wish I could be cool like them.
No. Now, Buttface Jones asked a question. From Software didn't announce anything at E3. Can we take anything from that other than sadness? Armored Core? ? New IP? ? They said that they were working on an Armored Core. Didn't someone say they were working on Armored Core a while back?
I can't remember. I can't see Armored Core being a good decision in 2018 or so, unless it has this sort of Destiny-style big open-world, loot-driven co-op thing going on. But and I say that having played a lot of Armored Core games.
Yeah, so in September of last year, they did confirm that they were working on a new Armored Core game as well as something else. Yeah. So I think the only thing to take from them not having a presence at E3 was just that they're just not ready to show anything. They just released their last Dark Souls DLC, and they're just taking a breather and making games, basically. Like, that's fine.
Yep.
Blizzard never shows anything at E3. Valve never shows anything at E3. Like, there are a lot of developers that just choose not to participate in conferences like that.
On the topic of Valve, so a few people always ask every year, I see in the comments, like, why didn't you invite Gabe Newell and Valve to the PC Gaming Show? I don't want to speak for Evan, who does most of the organizing for this, but there's an open invitation if they'd like to come show something. So it's not. I don't think it's for lack of us inviting, but
they actually asked and we turned them down.
Yeah. We said no. And it was cool that we did live stream on Steam. I don't know if anything else like that has happened before. So I thought that was really neat.
Yeah, Valve very graciously accepted our offer to put the show on there. So that was cool. But yeah, I mean, we obviously invited them to the event, and they just said they weren't ready. I think that's fair to say, as we do every year.
Mm-hmm. Chris86 asked if there's any more info on the new Clay game. Griftlands was, I believe, the name of it.
Yep.
I don't think we have any more information than what's on there. They have a Steam page for the game already, so that's kind of all the information we know.
That's basically it. I mean, the right way of thinking about it is this is Clay's take on Final Fantasy, which if you're not on board with that, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, like whatever life you led to that not being exciting to you.
Sorry about whoever hurt you.
For real. I mean, look at this animation style. Okay, there's gonna be a slug man about 20 seconds further into this trailer. And it's so delightful. The way the slug man gets up and is like, hey, I'm part of the party now. And the other guys are like, oh, come on, man. Get your ass together. So yeah,
this looks really cool. Yeah,
I mean,
we don't know much about it. I mean, and it's doing exactly what.
There he is. Oh man, yeah, buddy, let's do it. Oh.
It's doing exactly what Clay does, right? Which is surprise me every time they announce a new game. Like if you look back at Clay's track record, it just doesn't make any sense. They have Don't Starve, they have Oxygen Not Included, they have Mark of the Ninja, Hot Lava. And now this is like, or is it Hot Lava?
I think they're just publishing that effectively.
No, I think that's their own game too. They said that they have like they're working on 1 billion different things at once. Is the main takeaway.
Yep.
Yeah. I love that they just do 1 million like weird games every time. Like they could have just made like Don't Starve, but in a different setting or something like that. And instead they're really. Like they're really pushing themselves every time they do it.
Absolutely. So yeah, obviously the art style is what immediately gets us excited about Grifflands, but certainly the choice of genre. You know, it's sort of that. It seems like it's old school kind of turn-based Final Fantasy where you have your characters on a plane, but they're just way better animated, of course. And I don't know if it's like a timer battle system or AP or something like that, but. Yeah, I think our main question also is around structure and like whether it's procedurally generated or whether it has a set campaign and stuff like that. So looking forward to more details. But man, in the meantime, man, Oxygen Included is so fun. I've been having a great time with that. Yeah.
Good
stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I'm waiting a little longer. I still have such a little bit of a hesitance to play early access games like that anymore, but it is a good game right now. It's just I want more.
Oh,
I'm waiting for them to add Oxygen, and then I'll probably play it.
Boo. There was a good question actually of something that just called out Age of Empires. Man, we didn't talk about Age of Empires, which we announced at our own show.
Yeah, Age of Empires Definitive Edition.
Oh man,
to celebrate the 20th anniversary. So, hey, Microsoft revealed a game at our show. That's cool. Thanks, guys. A PC exclusive. Too. And so yeah, this is it's sort of a remaster and more, 4K graphics and a whole new soundtrack that they've remastered and matchmaking through Xbox Live. So,
and the graphics are like new, like they actually recreated them.
Yeah.
As opposed to something like the StarCraft 1 remaster where they just updated the textures. They just made the textures higher res. This is completely new graphics for this game.
The way Microsoft put it when they originally told us about this project was, we want to build it in the way that you remember playing Age of Empires, not the way it actually was, because you kind of got those rose-tinted glasses, right? They themselves kind of admitted the jankiness and the lack of like control groups and a lot of other sort of like basic RTS features that the game didn't have that they're bringing in this time. So that's reassuring. It just seems like it'll be a lovingly produced, recreation of a really beloved RTS.
And interestingly, in the comparison between the two, I'm kind of glad Blizzard didn't do that for Brood War, because Brood War has such a history, and if you did start making like gameplay changes, like you could select more than 12 units at a time, like people would freak out and be like, that's not Brood War anymore.
Because it's more multiplayer competitive focus.
Exactly. But Age of Empires, you're just kind of like, cool, like, okay.
Totally.
That was a cool announcement. That was one I was, again, just like kind of came out of left field and is there. I am going to bring up, though, super disappointing that it's Windows Store only. I mean, as Microsoft has been doing with all their games, but like, I love Forza Horizon 3, and that game is Windows Store only too. So, I will play a game on the Windows Store if it is good enough and not available anywhere else. Like, I will cave to that. You can boycott if you want, but like, I don't know. It works. There were a couple other things. Sea of Thieves we got to see again, but I'm kind of cold on Sea of Thieves right now until they start showing us more stuff or tell us a release date or anything like that. Like,
yeah,
It just seems like one of those games that's just going to be at E3 like 3 years in a row, showing a demo, and then like kind of come out to no fanfare.
Yeah, we saw Evolve at every PAX for a long time.
Oh man, at least 3 years on that.
Yeah.
Wow. Sea of Thieves looks cool, but Steven Messner played it, and he was kind of annoyed with the people he was paired with. And
he was paired with streamers or something, right?
Yeah, people who were like screaming into their mics as if they were broadcasting, but they were not broadcasting, and not really doing what they were supposed to be doing. Like, it's a game for goofing off with friends, right? Sounds like, but also there are objectives that you can go do. But I just wasn't super encouraged by what he said about the combat, which is like not very hard. Skeletons just kind of looking at me and I shot them. If there's no real mechanical challenge to it that my friends and I have to work together to overcome, and it's just kind of a toy box of pirate stuff, I'll be disappointed by it, I think. But I'm not saying I know that's what it is, just that seeing more 4K game footage at every Xbox conference, it probably isn't going to convince me.
So there's two more games I want to touch on just really fast because we're out of time. Lawbreakers got a date, and that was kind of the only big thing out of Lawbreakers, August 8th. That's exactly one of those games that I'm just like happy has a thing now, right? Like, it's gone through a lot of changes and betas and alphas, and you can say what you want if you like the game or not. I'm just glad it has a date, and we're going to get to start reviewing it critically in a more final form.
Yeah.
Like, that's exciting to me.
Yep.
Then the other one was Shadow of War. Did you get a chance to go hands-on with Shadow of War?
I did. I'll be brief about it. It honestly sort of reminded me of the reasons I stopped playing that game. So I think the people who love that game, the original, will love Shadow of War. Don't worry, it'll be fine. But it's it had that like staccato rhythm of like, you're in this massive sprawling castle siege, as they've shown in a lot of different trailers, and you're attacking and you're like moving in your guys. You got these all these like little Uruk generals that you're commanding, like lieutenants that you're commanding. And then, like, a dude interrupts you with his, like, fancy speech about who he is and, like, the last time you fought him. And you're like, okay, now back to the combat. And that happens, like, 4 more times. And you're like, I just want to be involved in this, like, the epic siege. I don't want these, like, interruptions after interruption, right?
It's like The Incredibles. Like, they caught him monologuing, right? Like,
yeah, for real. But for me, real quickly, like, there's just a lot going on in that game. Oh, my gosh. So, like, preparing for this castle siege, I was sort of being thrown into it, and I didn't have the buildup of tens of hours or whatever, but, like, you're selecting which of your lieutenants you want to bring in. There's, like, 4 of them. Okay, and now each of them can have multiple kind of traits and, like, strengths that they kind of bring to battle. Like, one of them, obviously, like, throws javelins. That's, like, a range attack. One of them rides wargs or whatever they're called, like the sort of, 4-legged enemies. That's, like, a cavalry-type enemy. And one of them, like, throws poison gas or something. And then, like, on the other side, you have the warlord's lieutenants who have, like, corresponding weaknesses, and they each have, like, 3 weaknesses and 3 strengths, and you have to, like, do all this calculus of, like, okay, which guys do I want to bring to counter this guy? And then, like, okay, great. That's like a 20-minute process, it felt like, to, like, plot all that out. And then you go into battle, and it's just this massive mess of all these dudes wandering around, and, like, when your lieutenants goes down, you have to, like, revive them and get them back up. And, you're climbing up to mind control guy to restore your health. And I don't know. I wanted to feel a little more intimate, a little more small. That sounds ridiculous, because when we first like, saw the reveal of this game, it was like they're increasing the scale. You're busting through these, like, multiple layers of defenses, and that felt really cool and interesting. There's a massive dragon that you can bring in. That's, like, one of your assets. But for me, it was kind of overwhelming. There's just, like, a ton going on. I mean, maybe it's just E3 that, like, it's sort of the wrong thing to demonstrate in a, like, 20 to 30 minute sit down. But yeah, for me, I just sort of hope I can have that experience of, like, infiltrating a fort, sort of Assassin's Creed style, by myself, and, like, really just working through my targets and taking my time. I feel like that's probably preserved in there. I didn't get a sense of it, but for me, it was just sort of like layering tons more stuff onto the existing experience. So we'll see.
I am. That's definitely a game I'm interested in spending intimate time with rather than demo time with. Right? Yeah. Like it is a game suited for playing at home slowly. All right, that's all the time we have, though, for today. It's just been such a big show. We had so much E3 stuff. You can find all our E3 coverage at pcgamer.com/E3. We did just a massive amount of stuff and games, and oh my god, it was kind of a low show, and it still seems like there's just so much cool stuff that we could talk about. So thank you very much for joining us. Like I said at the beginning of the show, we'll be back next week with the creator of Songbringer, who's going to be demoing that in the office, and we're just going to be talking with him about normal stuff as well. So don't miss that, and then we will be off the week after. So thank you very, very much. We love you all dearly. Leave us a comment at pcgamer.com/podcast. Let us know what you think. Send me an email at tom@pcgamer.com. All that good stuff. You know the drill. Thank you very, very much, and we will see you next time.